I thought I had cracked the case, and I was like, the church isn't true. And I cried. Like, it was very sad, because I was like, I've dedicated my life to this, and now it's nothing.
I'm telling people that science, just like Steven from Nacho Libre, science is the reason why you should leave the church, but science is actually the reason why you should stay in the church.
Now let's just think about ideal situations. Like, is it ideal for my kids to grow up in a church? Like, forget about God.
Heard people who like, yeah, I had this critical like question that would change the entire fabric of my reality if I answered it, and I just put it up on the shelf and forgot about it.
And now, let us reason together.
Welcome back to Salty Saints. My name is Hayden Holm. I'm joined today by my brother Tanner. We've got a special guest with us, Roy Anderson from the Iron Rodcast. We're talking algorithms, anti-members, Hashmo influencers, what to do if you get stuck in them, how to get out of them, and some takeaways for LDS parents. But let's start this off. Roy, you have been all over these algorithms, and you are seasoned, I guess, our tracker. You are going to take us through these dark paths and guide us safely through like a great Iron Rodcast. So why don't you give a little bit of background on your story and how you got started?
Yeah, well, so as far as algorithms go, I guess that is where my story starts. I got back from my mission in 2020 during COVID. So I didn't get to finish the last 3 months. So I'm not going to the Celestial Kingdom. Sorry, guys.
Darn it.
Oh man.
So
that's too bad.
I got booted home. That was tough. And then it was in the middle of COVID. So quarantine, all that crazy stuff. And I got into a relationship that just wasn't a good one for me. I got engaged, and it was a very bad situation for me. And I think now that I've gotten older, I look back and I'm like, we were both just immature, me and this person. Yeah.
She tried to make you get the vaccine. Is that what you're trying to say? No, I'm just kidding. I'm messing.
But I did. So we broke it off. Like she had a dress, we had a venue. And that was really embarrassing. I come from a very tight knit, like very close family. So they were like, there's pros and cons to that. One of the cons is that they know everything. And one of the pros is that they know everything. So I fled from the dark and dreary wilderness up to the Tree of Life in Provo, Utah.
There you go.
Hoping that I would find a wife. I ended up in the great and spacious building. Did not know that was going to happen. But it was just it was a situation where I went to Provo and I was like, I'm going to study. And I'm going to pursue an education. And I just never did. It was like just too easy to stay up really late and have fun and go to parties and date around and things like that. Like it was too easy for me. And I'm actually going to put in a little like disclaimer here. If you do go to like Provo or any place like in ASU, like if you decide you're just going to move to Tempe, like where ASU is in Arizona, and you have no goal with yourself, you will just fall into whatever avenue is presented the easiest in front of you. And that's what started happening to me. And I remember I've always been passionate about the church, but then first off, like sin and just dumb decisions. I don't know if those things are always connected, but there were dumb decisions and sin happening. And then I started going, they are pretty close. Yeah. I would say that. I don't know if they're always the same thing, but they're pretty close. Yeah. So then I just kind of fell into the algorithm of, I was scrolling and I just started seeing like podcast and influencer and anti or ex members of the church. And they started saying things that I was like, what is going on? I remember one night, it was late and I was sitting there and I got on this podcast and they said this. They went, oh, you found out, like it was somebody talking to the host and he was like, I remember when I found out about Fanny Alger, that ruined my testimony. And I was like, who the frick is Fanny Alger? And the host literally responded and goes, whenever any member finds out about Fanny Alger, they always lose their testimony. And I was like, who the frick is Fanny Alger? So I was like, what do I do? And for the next 3 hours, I kid you not, 3 hours, I just was researching Fanny Alger. and I was researching Helen Mar Kimball, and I was researching like blacks in the priesthood and the priesthood ban and all these things. And it was like after those 3 hours, I thought I had cracked the case, and I was like, the church isn't true. And I cried. Like, it was very sad. I cried and cried and cried.
Oh,
and
no.
Darn it.
It was terrible. Because I was like, I've dedicated my life to this, and now it's nothing. Like, what am I supposed to do now? I don't know what to do. So I just remember it tore me to shreds. And that was probably in like 2021, 2022. And probably from 2021 to 2023, I didn't really tell my parents that this is what was happening. But I was like, I don't know how to rationalize if the church is true. And I didn't really know how to, like, where do I even come? I just didn't know I couldn't figure it out. And I decided in that time span, I was like, you know what? I believe in Jesus. I believe that Jesus is the greatest and that he's my savior. So I'm going to read the Bible. I'm going to go through the Old Testament, and I'm going to read all the way through as much as I can. Sadly, I didn't finish the whole Old Testament because what the crap? You know what I'm saying? That's a long one.
I'm loud and clear.
I'm with you. Yeah.
But something I started realizing was that super freaking weird stuff happens in the Old Testament. Like, very strange, very weird stuff. Things that are like not okay happen in the Old Testament, and by any standard. And these are men of God.
And it's not just once.
Like,
it's repeated.
No.
Yeah.
It's like every single page you flip it and you're like, Lot did what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, just like the most insane, like, Abraham. I remember when I was reading the Abraham story, this time from a point of view where I was trying to deconstruct, I guess. I was like, wait, hold up. Abraham got a maidservant pregnant and then just like sent her out into the desert with a bottle of water. Like, that's a death wish. What's going? Yeah, what's going on? And I realized in that moment that if God's church, God at the head of a church, if his church has to be perfect, then the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not his church. But as you read through the Bible, you realize his church actually doesn't have to be perfect. So what does it have to have? And I was like, oh, like the proper keys and authority. We know that we believe in prophets, apostles, evangelists, pastors, teachers, and so forth. Like, these things are from the New Testament. And other things that were interesting to me was I was like, wait. Some of the weirdest things that we believe in, like 3 kingdoms of glory, that's not found in the Book of Mormon.
Right?
That's in the Bible. Or baptisms for the dead, that's not found in the Book of Mormon. That's in the Bible.
That's
or
New
polygamy.
Testament,
Right. New Testament.
Polygamy.
Yeah.
Name one prophet in the Book of Mormon that was a polygamist. There are none. Like, that's in the Bible. So I was like, wait. The weirdest things we believe in stem from the Bible. So I was like, we must come from a biblical. This is a biblical church. And then my eyes opened up to this like idea of like, okay, now that I know the church doesn't have to be perfect the way I thought it did, let's start digging into it. And that's where this like awakening came. And like there were other weird things that I was like, wait a second. Like, Abraham went up on a mountain and then came back down. And we guys like, hey guys, I had a vision of God. I'm like, great, what did he tell you? And he said, we need to cut off all your foreskin and I'm going to do it.
That's right. Yeah.
That's a hard pill to swallow, you know? That's kind of rough.
Yeah.
And then could you imagine, like, let's say you as a father are like, okay, fine, Abraham. It's weird, but I believe you're the prophet. We're going to do it. And then you go, I'll do it to my son, though. And Abraham goes, no. I have to do it to your son.
Yeah, that's a rough one. That's a rough step.
Like,
Yeah.
Now, for some reason, Christians and people who study the Bible look at the story and just go, 'twas a holy practice. What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And so I realized, that there's symbolism in things, and it's really easy to make something that's very innocent, clean, and or sacred turn into something that sounds very disgusting. and very evil.
Right. So you're pointing out like a double standard. Like,
yes.
yeah, maybe we're not treating the Bible and the weird things that happen in the Bible the same way that we're treating what happened in church history.
And to that point, like I hear from all sorts of other Christians all the time, like, I can't believe you believe in Joseph Smith. That's so fantastical. It's so crazy. And that's exactly what your point is. Like, really? It's more crazy than, summoning she-bears to, tear apart children, like.
Right.
Joseph Smith using a stone and a hat to translate a book is crazier than that, Like,
right.
I don't know.
That's where we lost
the
you.
Bible.
You were fine with like the angel. That was the funniest part for me, is like there was that big group of members that were like, as soon as they learned about the hat, they were like, no, that could never happen. But up until that point, they were like, angel, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, gold plates. Yep. He took him back. He disappeared. He went into heaven. Translated through a hat. Oh, no, I can't handle that. No.
Yeah.
No, sorry, Buster Brown. You can't pull a fast one on me.
Yeah.
Another thing that's absolutely insane is Joseph of Egypt had a divining cup. He would look in a wine cup and he would divine things like what?
Right.
What are you talking about?
See?
So anyways, first I realized, as far as my faith crisis goes, and this took a long time because it takes a long time to actually like study the Bible. That's not like an easy thing
effort,
to do. And I didn't even finish it. Like I was still just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna skip this part of Numbers. Like this is intense, But I realize the church is probably going to be messy no matter what, because we're humans. But then you can't get away from the algorithm. So I felt confident in my religion because I saw the fruit. Because Jesus Christ says, so that's another thing. Jesus Christ says, they're like, how do we know if there's a false prophet or a true prophet? Which implies there will be prophets, by the way. And then he says, by your fruit, by their fruits. By their fruits ye shall know them. And I was looking at the fruits of the church, and I'm sitting here like, I think the church is a net positive wherever it is in the world. The fact that it has on the community, the fact that it has on charities and on people's mental health, I think it's a net positive. But all of these videos that were popping up on my phone were not a net positive. It was just like hashtag Exmo, hashtag Ward 666. Like these are the things that were popping up on my because I was just like eating it up, and I couldn't get away from it. And I listened to them on purpose sometimes because I would debunk them for myself. I wasn't making content in 23 or 24. And then one time, and this is where I get into like the algorithm. One time I was watching a podcast, and it was a long video, and the whole thing was whack. I was like, I can't believe what I'm listening to right now. And then one of the visitors on the podcast goes, who are those idiots that are like pro-Mormon conservative morons that just talk about the church in a positive way? Like, who are those morons? And then the host goes, oh, Cardin Ellis, Ward Radio. And I was like, who the frick is Ward Radio? So I looked up Ward Radio and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what the crap? Now, I can't refer Ward Radio to like a theologian, right? Like it was fun. It was like fun content. I was like, yo, this is not just fun, it's hilarious. And then they had cool people on like Don Bradley. And I was like, Don Bradley? Do you guys know who Don Bradley is? I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I listen to every episode. If Don Bradley's in the house, I'm there.
I know, dude. Don Bradley blew my mind. And then I found Thoughtful Faith. And then you find a bunch of these. I didn't even know about like Fair Mormon until like 2024. I don't actually know when that or Mormoner. And I found all these things out from these positive like pro LDS content, even if they were a little chaotic. And I was like, this is great. And so then it was like I was consuming that because it was enjoyable, it was exciting, and eventually it pushed me more towards, because in those videos, in those spaces, they'll be like, well, the prophets are saying this right now, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm not listening to the prophets in this moment. I'm always reading like, what did Brigham Young say, and I'm not actually listening to Russell and Nelson right now. So I started following him on Instagram. So I was like, what the frick is Russell Nelson saying? I should probably listen to that guy. Like, I believe
he's a pretty good influencer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd buy his
So then
merch.
yes, for real. I would buy some President Russ merch, bro. So then it was like
hustle with the Russell.
Then I started following the apostles and prophets because I was actually interested in what they had to say. And then it occurred to me that they post every day. The apostles and prophets post they post a story, a reel, or just a regular post every single day. And they'll post a reel and then post it on their story. And if you follow all of them, you'll see content from them every single day, which is insane. Like, and so it occurred
That's
to me.
That's a lot of content, yeah.
Yeah, and people, I mean, obviously they have people there that are like doing stuff for them. Like I'm not trying to act like they do it all, but like Russell Nelson just did something. Jeffrey R. Holland just did something the other day where he said, let me read some scriptures with you guys about sin and repentance. He took time out of his day to do that. Now somebody else posted it, but he took time out of his day to be like, I want to make an Instagram video, and he uploaded it. So then me and my brother were like, bro, we need to just do a podcast, like Follow the Prophet. We need to do a podcast where we just talk about our missions. And so that was our original idea, was to just a podcast about our missions. And very quickly it just turned into apologetics, and we didn't even know why. It was all of a sudden we were just like, we were just trying.
Yeah. No, people online, they go 0 to 60. Like, you say the wrong thing the wrong way, they're just like, ha ha, and they're taking pot shots at you. You're like, whoa.
Oh my gosh, dude! If you typo Jesus or accidentally put a lowercase g for God, people will be like, see, this is proof. This is proof. I'm like,
we got him now.
What are you talking about? So anyways, that's my story. That's my story. It went from this faith crisis, which turned into study. Like, that's a big thing I try to get people to know. Like, stop trying to like turn off your brain and start opening your mind to the fact that Joseph Smith was sealed to Helen Mar Kimball, who was 14, and start studying these specific facts about the church, because you don't want to be dumb. I don't know. It's like, maybe like,
yeah. Well, you bring up a great point, because I know a lot of people, you got to go through that tunnel. When you hear anti-Mormon stuff, like, you got to study it out and go through that tunnel and get to the light at the other end of that tunnel. Because I know so many people who have gone through, like, who have heard of the CES letter and never even read it, but just like maybe skimmed it or like seen a snippet of it, and that's what destroyed their testimony. And they're just gone. It's like, you didn't even read it, and you didn't even question it. You just heard that it existed, and you're like, all right, I'm out. It's like, well, maybe,
I'm out.
Maybe you're looking for an excuse, Well,
it's like, and this is, here's the little bro. He's in.
What up?
There we go.
Hey, Cat. Nice to see you.
Yep. Yeah, like, either they will take something out of context and they'll say, all right, here's one fact, I'm going to put it out of context, or they'll take their present values and they will impose them on history. And they'll say, can you believe what they did back then? It was just like, when everyone else was doing the same thing, it's like, hey, you can't do that.
Yeah. Anyways, to sum up everything I'm trying to say is, if you're worried about church history, I encourage you to step into the void, baby. Just take a
lean
freaking
into
leap, dude. Oh my gosh. Open up a book. Read it out, baby. Like, I get pumped about this stuff. When I hear something like, what the crap is that? I'm like, let's just dig. Let's just dig. I love it so much.
Yeah, get into it. Yeah.
You have to. Yeah, that's the only way you can find the truth, is you have to dig in deep, And the truth does not disappoint. There's a reason why you're here on this podcast after digging deep into it, So I think everyone should.
Totally. Do we want to talk about how to help our own algorithm?
Yeah, well, I have a couple questions real quick before we get into there.
Ahead.
So when you were, Ken, did you fall into the algorithms as well, or was this a Roy exclusive?
So I had my own like faith crisis before I went on my mission. I wasn't really on social media or whatever. So I didn't even know who John Dehlin was until Roy was talking about him when I got off the mission. So I did not fall into the algorithm.
I got you.
Yeah.
And was John Dehlin the guy that you were doing Trump hands with at the very beginning of this, where you're like, hey, study Fanny Alger. She's going to take you right out of the church.
Hey, if people want to act like John Dehlin isn't the Donald Trump of anti-Mormonism, they're lying, bro. They're freaking lying. That's I don't know what the frick they're talking about. John Dehlin will drop a nuke of knowledge on Iran, dude. He'll freaking do it. I don't.
He'll do it. He'll do it, and it'll be misinformed and taken out of context.
Yeah. That's funny.
No, Ket's
I have the biggest words, the best words.
Ket's story is more interesting than mine, in my opinion, because without social media, Ket just was like thinking about studying or looking into philosophy, and he was kind of like, maybe God isn't real. Like he went deeper. He went a couple levels deeper than I went.
Yeah, so he dove all the way into that rabbit hole. That's awesome, and maybe we'll have to have you guys back on to kind of talk more about that, getting more into the algorithms. So, Roy, were you married at the time? Were you dating, or were you just kind of living la vida loca?
I was living the vida loca. I'm telling you, all my family, that's the pro and con. They know everything about everything that has ever happened to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, living the vida loca. But the crazy thing is, I got married once I got right. Like once I got right with God, and once I got right with my faith, and once I got right with like how to study and how to learn things, my wife just appeared. I don't really even know how to like, but
it's a crazy story.
Yeah, it seemed like God was literally like, hey dude, like I have a great girl for you, but you got to pull your head out of your rear end. Like I need you to figure this out.
You got to shape
first.
up.
Yeah. And the second I
strap in, bro,
the second I strapped in, I kid you not. Like, it was like, I made 5 goals with myself and God. And I was like, once I do these things, then I will start looking for a wife. It wasn't like I was going to say, then give me a spouse. But I was like, once I can do these 5 things, I'm going to start looking for a wife. And I completed the 5th one. And like the next day, I met my wife. It was insane. I was like,
whoa.
Which was really
awesome.
Cool. It's a cool story.
Okay.
That would probably have to be another podcast as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we're here for it. So how did your parents react? Did they figure out that you were in these algorithms and you were just like kind of working your way out of the church? And if they did, how did they take that?
So this is, my mom's going to be mad if she sees this, but my parents, I relate. When ex-members talk about their faith crises or whatever, I'm like, I like kind of relate a little bit, because our parents are very much like, yeah, I just don't ask that question because I think it's stupid. So like if I'm like, hey mom, mom, what do you think about Joseph Smith like marrying getting sealed to a 14-year, like what do you think? My mom will just be like, I think Joseph's a prophet, so suck it up. Like that's the way. That's just kind of. That's kind of. So
those are the waters we're swimming in, folks.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I think listen. Now that I've gone through a faith crisis and come out on the other side, it's very admirable for me that my mother and father have so much faith in the church and in the gospel. So it wasn't like they ever like push me away. I think just to them, these accusations, whether or not they were true, were so ridiculous because they've done things like actually read the Bible. And they're like, yeah, what? A prophet of God did something weird? Yeah, Abraham? Are you kidding me? Like, I don't...
We've all heard about the she-bears, you know?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. That's 100%.
So,
like after you hear those stories, nothing's gonna faze you.
Yeah.
Well, and
for real.
And to their credit, like during that time, the people that were passing out like anti-Mormon and ex-member stuff were usually the people that were picketing at the conference center and like screaming at you the whole time while holding up these random crazy posters, you know? And so the default to most of that time is just like, okay, yeah, that's crazy. These people are crazy. You don't want to be like that. Just keep walking. That's the MO. Is just keep walking. But they weren't raised in the age of information like we were, you know? And so we have the age of information. We have a bunch of content. And now we have influencers who are presenting themselves as, like normal, natural, great, genuine people. And they're winning over hearts. They're winning over minds. And, you're like, oh, I thought all anti and ex members were just these terrible, awful people screaming at the conference center. But this guy seems like a great guy. Like, oh, wow, look at that.
This guy's a therapist.
Our generation has to be a little bit more studied, We have to do the homework, like exactly what you were saying. Because I think we're out of the age of information and into the age of revelation, where it's like, hey, we have to do the homework ourselves. We can't just rely on what other people are saying. And you can't really just bury your head and keep going anymore, because this content is everywhere, And so I think that's a great call out. I cut you off. You were about to say something. I saw you getting really animated about a story. I'm here for it. So.
About the crazy people thing. One time we came out of church when I was young. It was before I was baptized. And this dude was riding around on a bike drenched in sweat. And he was just screaming like, "You effing Mormons, every morning you wake up and you pull your head so..." I mean, he was screaming like the most absurd. And I remember being like, I never even heard these words before. And I was like, who the crap? Like just outside of our church. And I looked at my dad and I remember this. I don't know if he remembers this, but I looked at my dad and I said, hey, why is he so mad? And my dad said his Mormon girlfriend probably broke up with him. And then we went home. So every time I see,
what a savage! Look at that.
Every time I see somebody like dogging on the church, I'm like, oh, you fell for a really attractive LDS girl, and now you're trying to rationalize that she's going to hell. That's
right. I didn't need her. Her religion's fake anyways.
She was a demon anyways. Yeah.
He was like, I can do better.
Go to hell for her. I was willing to go to hell for her, bro.
Oh, that's good.
Amazing.
Oh man. So I think about that all the time. Like there was this one guy. Sorry, I'm kind of going off a little bit, but there's this one guy. He's a prominent Christian influencer, and I'm not going to say his name, but he made a video, and it was one of our first videos that actually went viral. So I guess if you just go to our Instagram and see it, it's right there. It's tagged. But he did a video about like how Mormon LDS children's songs are cultish and scary. And I didn't say this, but I'm like, oh Josh, I outed him right now. Oh Josh, your ex-girlfriend that was a member of the church broke up with you, huh? Come on, Josh.
Oh man, look at that.
He's actually happily married, so that's not true. But
yeah,
that's funny. That's great. That's awesome. Well, I think, and one of the things, just to loop back to the algorithms that I noticed, you probably noticed this too, is like until you get into like actively following like pro LDS channels, it is really difficult to stumble upon them. You just don't get fed that, I think that one of the reasons is a lot of XMOs, they hijack all the pro LDS hashtags, like they are just filling their feeds, all the faithful members' feeds with just anti stuff because they know how the game works. A lot of pro channels, they're not catching on that it's quite a battle. It's actually a war going on. Like people are battling for your attention, and I think we're kind of losing that battle, to be honest. Which is one of the reasons why we started this whole thing, is we noticed that.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll modify it. I would say we were losing until about 2024, 2025. I think that's when I noticed like a ton of members just starting their own channels. And that's when we started
that too.
And maybe it's just because we started around that time, but I noticed there were a handful of other channels that started, and I was just like, whoa, like crap is getting real. People are taking to the internet.
It's why I use the hashtag XMO, hashtag Mormon, hashtag Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. Because if you're even if you're an active member of the church that loves the church, the hashtag Expo is popping up on your feed. I don't care who you are. Unless you're my 70-year-old grandma. She's not 70. Right. Sorry, grandma. But unless you're my grandma and you just consume and you're already a celestial being and you just love listening to the prophet, hashtag Exmo is going to pop up on your feed. That's just what's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. So I use it a lot because I'm like, I'm trying to get to my audience. I'm not trying to. What am I going to do? Hashtag Jeffrey R. Holland.
Right.
Like
you're trying to get back to Nana.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
That's right. That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
this one's for you,
theories.
Nana. Yeah.
I have a couple theories about how to own your social media. Can I present them, or are we
perfect? Let's hear them.
Are we ready?
Yeah,
to move?
go for it.
Go for it. Go for it. The floor is yours.
When I was a young lad, Kat's gonna remember this. When we were I was like 10 probably. We did a vacation to Yellowstone. And my mom said, this is going to be such a great vacation. And we were all so excited. And she said, we just have one rule. And we were like, we don't care what the rule is. This is going to be dope. And she said, you have to share a Book of Mormon with a person on vacation. And so for a month straight, it seemed like we did role playing where we would practice giving a Book of Mormon to somebody for family home evening. Like that was our thing. Oof. And so I had to do that. Like on vacation as a 10-year-old, I had to go give a Book of Mormon to somebody. I gave it to a lady in like a McDonald's. Like I remember doing it.
And with your hot spicy, would you like a side of? No,
here's a side of the Word of God with your Diet Coke.
Yeah, would you like a little Nephi with that shake? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we're gonna celestial size this one.
At the same time, we had to do like every time we had a primary program, all of our teachers were invited, not by my mom. They were invited by us. And every time the ensign would come out, all of our teachers got one. Not because my mom gave it to them, but because we did. Like my mom was like, go give it to them. I actually found out that one of my teachers was an ex-member. I gave it to her and she was like, oh, thank you for this, but you can have it back. My mom sends ones to me anyways. And I was like, well, my mom sent me to give you this one. So you can throw it away, but I'm not going back to my mother.
I can't bring this back.
Yeah,
I have quotas to fill. I can't take this back.
Yeah, no wonder why we
got the part where that's my problem. Dude. Yeah.
Yeah, no wonder we were like, this is a cult. We got to get out of this, bro. But I heard stories of like that all growing up, of people doing things like that, like in the 90s and the 80s, of people just like teaching the gospel in the workplace and just like sharing scriptures with people. And even in conference, I feel like I've heard less of that, of people just being like, here's the Book of Mormon, less stories that way. And it's because in the society we live in, it's not normal to read a book anymore, really. So it's even less normal to be like, here is a Bible, like here's scripture. You won't even read Tom Sawyer, but let me give you a scripture. And so I've been trying to figure out how do we like replicate that, and we do it with our stories on Instagram. Like people look at your stories, you have followers. So if you follow content, like I follow somebody, I forget what they're called, the olive tree, I don't know, but he always just posts fun facts about like things that prove the Book of Mormon's true. I throw those on my story all the time on our page. And I'm going to start doing it on like my main page, because that's the equivalent nowadays of like giving out a Book of Mormon in McDonald's.
Yeah.
And if you tell the algorithm I'm throwing these things on my story, the algorithm's going to be like, sick, let me give you more. And then you're just going to keep getting, it's like a great cycle, because you keep getting more of like this cool information that you can throw on your story. And if you start losing followers, so freaking what, bro? Like, yes,
right. Well, and it's way less awkward, way less uncomfortable than having to approach someone at a McDonald's and slide a Book of Mormon right next to their big fries. Like, hey, here you go.
That's a great point.
Like, it's way more natural. It's way more normal. It's way more comfortable, because people are doing it anyways. Like people are sharing their opinions. Like it is the town square. That's where ideas are exchanging all over the world. And so I think that's great.
One of
the things that I wanted to touch down.
More, just real quick. There's so much more in like it's a safe place for them to consume it too, because they're on their phone, they're in their own house, they don't have someone in front of them that they have to directly negotiate the situation with. They can choose to consume it or not, and usually they'll actually be more open than any other situation when they're just sitting there on their phone. So I think that's great to just kind of pop up in their feed like that is probably the best chance you have at actually starting to change their mind or pique their curiosity.
Also, freaking throw your own personality into it. Like I don't throw things up that are like have the Mormon Tabernacle Choir because I like Biggie Smalls. So I like you know what I'm saying? Like it's not me, but I'll post like I'll post like a picture, and then I post like the emojis are just like, that's what I'm talking about in all caps. Like this is freaking like put your own personality into this. You don't have to post like your.
So are you telling me you don't do every post in spirit voice? You don't get up there. I love to learn and I love to laugh.
Yeah, no. Oh man, yeah, no, I don't, and we don't have to. Like in the church, please use your spirit voice. I don't like that's when you're supposed to do it, and it's fine. Like talk, be respectful. But on social media, bro, like just throw it out there. Who even can? No one cares, and if they do care, that's probably a good thing. Like that's probably great.
Right. Like the worst thing that can happen to a channel online is that they get ignored. And being a khaki pant wearing, cardigan toting, spirit voice speaking pushover is going to get you ignored. And
Really
and honestly, it's like I would even push. I don't even think you should use spirit voice at church. I mean, you should speak at a comfortable with reverence,
reverent voice,
but it doesn't mean that you have to whisper like George McFly all over the place. I would say the only place where you should do that is in your therapist's office. Honestly, like they're the only people that are going to care about that.
Don't dog my
Help
boy
me.
George, dude. Holy cow.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, dude, yeah, that's another thing is about members of the church is because of all of the post Mormon and all of the casual or anti-Mormon stuff that's posted, those people are their authentic selves, and that's why people love it. Nobody loves when somebody's like, so today I was reading in 1 Nephi 4 and I loved it because like that's not, nobody cares about that. I don't want to listen to that.
That puts you to sleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna scroll so fast. Like, and if yourself is that where you're like, I really found this cool thing, then do that, because guess what? The people who follow you on Instagram like you. So they're going to enjoy that stuff because
they also like tapioca and Matlock.
Yeah.
Just going to throw that out there. Yeah. And family history. They're probably the big family history buff in your family.
History fans. If they follow you and you have that voice, they're getting a discount at the store,
That's right. They're making you a quilt for Christmas.
My grandma makes us a quilt. Awesome. My grandma makes every single one of us a quilt whenever we get married. That's a
There you go. There you go.
She loves that voice, bro. She loves that voice.
She hates it.
They grew up with it.
Oh, dude, yeah. Sometimes we say things and grandma's like, hey, you guys should be more respectful. I'm like, I'm sorry, grandma. Like, I don't.
How dare you?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Grandma, I love you. If you're watching this, I love you. I respect you. You're the best.
Shout out to
There
Nana.
you go.
Awesome. Yeah. Shout out to Nana.
There we go.
That's awesome.
So I guess what is one of the situations that we get a lot in the Discord that we have for dads, one of the common themes that we've noticed is there are a lot of active, great LDS men whose wives begin to fall into these toxic algorithms. And eventually it gets to like this pretty awkward place in their relationship where the husband's like, we got to go to church. And the wife's like, I don't want to go to church and I don't want you paying tithing either. And the husband's like, I don't have a script for this. I don't know what to do. So what would your advice be, having been through that process, having been in the algorithm? What would your advice be to the average LDS father, husband who's like trying to stay faithful, but my wife, she's kind of stuck like a dinosaur in a tar pit in the Alyssa Grenfell, John DeLynns of the world?
I can't take that name, bro. I can't. Oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Much love. Much love to Alyssa Grimfield.
Much love.
Yeah.
I don't Kat. I like. Luckily, Kat and I have our spouses are awesome. Like so
Yeah.
awesome.
We're leaving the church before they're leaving the church is probably what it's going to turn into.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's the way you like it.
Yeah.
I was telling my wife when we first started making content, my wife was like, "What's even the point of making this content? I don't even understand." And it's because my wife's For You page, we did a thing because I was like, I want to see what's on your For You page. It's crafts for babies, clothing, decorations, and holidays. That's all my wife sees. Yeah. So like, I don't even like, I can't, she's not even near this problem, you know, like
she's in a different, she's in a different univer's
she's in a Hobby Lobby. Yeah.
Yeah. For real. That's what for real. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever have that struggle, with her. Cause even I'll be like, honey, I heard this thing. What do you think about it? And she'll be like, I think that's stupid. And then that's the end of the conversation. And there's not much more after it. But I do think, if you are, and once again, I'm just kind of, I'm riffing right now, just coming off of the dome.
Riff away. Yeah.
Perfect.
If your spouse is coming to you and she's like, I have issues with X, Y, and Z, it sounds like you need to do a little companionship scripture study and that could be history. That can be the CES letter. I know that sounds crazy. But there's the Light and Truth letter as well. Read them side by side. Tell her that you like acknowledge how difficult it is to have a faith crisis. And then sit by her side like you covenanted to do with God and study it out. And study out and learn. And don't necessarily show her. Be like, can we look at, so here's your thing. Can we look at the opposing conversation? And can we just do a companionship study? Can that be something that happens? Because you're probably not doing scripture study together if that's happening, right? If she doesn't want to go to church anymore. Yeah. So you should study something together. My dad always said to us growing up, he said, you'll never get a divorce if you say a prayer with your wife every night and read your scriptures with her every night. And I think there is truth to that. But I also think there's truth to just studying truth with your spouse every night, about what she's learning. Because a lot of people, when they're going through these faith crises, they don't want to be. It's not like they're like pumped about it.
Right.
And they're scared.
Right.
And the last thing I'd want to hear from my wife, if I was like, hey, maybe the church isn't true, is you're an idiot. Just shut up and suck it up. You know what I'm saying? But if my wife was like,
kind of like that boomer mentality of all those questions, don't put them on a shelf. Just forget about them. Okay. You just bottle that down.
Garbage disposal.
That's
crap.
right. Garbage you eat your problem. We're going to McDonald's. You eat those problems. Okay.
Yeah. And I would also say that if you have a shelf, take it off the wall. Like,
there you go.
Yeah.
Let's
stop throwing anything away. Just deal with it.
Just rip it down, break out the sledgehammers. Yeah.
Here's another thing I don't understand. I don't understand this, and I would love if someone could DM us and explain this to me, because if you're doing like if you are having a problem with a subject, you should probably study that subject until you having multiple things on your shelf is crazy to me, because this is worth studying. Like the gospel is worth knowing if it's true. So you should probably just like keep studying that subject and figure it out, because there are answers. It's not like there's a bunch of idiots in the church. There's like 13 million of us. We're not all morons. Like that's not
right.
Right.
Yeah, that metaphor has always baffled me, because I've heard people who I had this critical question that would change the entire fabric of my reality if I answered it, and I just put it up on the shelf and forgot about it. Like, what are you talking about?
What do you mean?
And then eventually my shelf broke. Right. I was like, yeah, because you didn't address your issues. Like, think about it for a second. I don't know how you do that.
It's like, it's like these questions, like, does anything matter? I'm just gonna put it up on the shelf. I was like, bro, how
Yeah.
do you even, like?
You got to talk about it. Yeah.
Could you imagine if like gravity just turned off for like 30 seconds and then turned back on, and everyone put that on their shelf? You know, like,
Yeah,
it's that big of a deal. You know,
I just put gravity on the shelf.
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
Yeah,
I'll address that one later. You know, I don't know.
Dude, I think
We
about
got
it
the
like when
Thanos
you're-
snap.
Yeah.
Well, you just put the Thanos snap on the shelf, and you're just like, I just blipped. I don't know what happened. Everyone's older, but
I'll
well.
revisit that later.
I'll revisit that later
gonna
when
circle back
I'm
around to
done
that.
playing Nintendo. Yeah.
Well, the crazy thing as well for me is like in my house that I live in, if the sink is leaking, I'm gonna try to fix that sink every single day till it's fixed. And that's what I think that some people need to understand that the gospel of Jesus Christ is your house. And so if you're just going to be like, I'm going to start deconstructing my faith and let that sink drip, and then let the fan stop working, and then let the AC go out, and then your house is going to be destroyed. And people think, oh, I can go to a new house. No, it's your house or the streets. And some people like the streets, but those are the options. So fix your freaking house. Like, like just take care of it.
Right.
Take care of it. Don't
That's a
just let it
great
fall apart.
analogy. Yeah.
I would say like there's an actual muscle in your brain that's like, I need to figure out what is the ideal. Like I've got the streets, or I got to fix this house. Kind of on that same vein. It's like, it's the church or it's not. And you need it. That can't just be a thought that runs through your head once. It's like, all right, now let's just think about ideal situations. Like, is it ideal for my kids to grow up in a church? Like, forget about God. You can have the God questions. Yes, you're going to be asking those for the rest of your life, I feel like. You know, like, who's God? How does he influence me? But if you're talking about, do I stay in an organization or do I leave it? It's like, you really need to weigh the pros and cons. I mean, I know people close to me and Roy, and I'm not going to out them, but they'll now that they'll say things like, I just wish my kid would date a Mormon girl, and they're not members, or so. And you go, okay, do you realize what's going on there? Like you're recognizing an ideal and deciding not to live the ideal. And I just wish and then be honest with yourself. If you're just going to be honest with yourself and say, well, the ideal is just not really what I want to vibe with right now, then that's fine. I can actually be like, all right, we're not at the ideal yet, but we're trying to make it there. If you just kind of want to stop, say it and just be honest with me. But I think that's a healthy thing to do. Put pros and cons 100%. Together.
No, I like that. I mean, not to bring up unnecessarily John DeLynn back into the conversation, but I think he a lot of times he'll take the horse out of the stall, but he doesn't ride it. So what he does, to your point, is he shows people like, hey, let's get you out of your faith, but he doesn't show them where they should go. You know, he doesn't give them any alternative. And it's just like, what's the alternative? It's like, well, if you were to actually look at the telestial or the secular arguments for staying in, it's just like, well, you're going to see less divorce. We're going to have healthier, happier families. Probably with the word of wisdom, you're going to live a healthier, happier life. Your body's going to be better taken care of. You're going to have community wherever you go in the entire world. You're going to be learning about Jesus, sacrificing. You know, you're going to be learning about self-reliance. You're going to be learning how to take care of yourself spiritually, mentally, and physically. It's like, there are some pretty good benefits here. You know, not to be that guy, but I guess I will. That he will get the horse out of the barn, but he just does not ride it, because if he were to ride it, he'd realize like, oh, I don't really have a case. You know, I'm telling people that science, just like Steven from Nacho Libre, science is the reason why you should leave the church, but science is actually the reason why you should stay in the church. You know, it's like, I don't know if you understand the argument that you're making here, you know?
Yeah. And I don't like, Russell and Nelson said this in a conference talk a little bit ago, where he said, if we don't know something about, if there's something about religion that doesn't line up with something about science, it means either we don't know, like there's something we're missing in the religion, or there's something we're missing in science, but eventually they converge. Eventually they do meet the correct standard. And I don't know why ex-members treat us like they're like, oh, you're a science denier. It's like, no, I'm a religion affirmer, but I acknowledge science. I'm not sitting here like I'm just gonna only listen to my religion. Like, I listen to the science answer, and then I look at the fruits of the answers, and I'm okay. Like, if the world,
and I would even go one step further. I'm like, and I'll bring up John again, but I'm going like, I'm going like, at the end of the day, you don't care about science. You care about community. Like, you care about day to day. If you are seen, if you are heard, if you are protected, like, that's what you care about. So let's forget about the stupid science. Like that has anything to do with why you left and why you're staying out and why it benefited you or didn't benefit you while you were in. It's like, let's really figure out what is going on here, because the people in Guyana that I taught, the gospel to, they didn't know about freaking evolution or the age of the earth. Like, they give a, like, yeah, like they do not care.
Yeah, you were about to go into some Mormon curse words there.
Ooh. Grandma would have been so mad, bro.
So mad.
No quilt for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think you bring up a great point.
When the rubber meets the road, it's not about stupid science. Strap in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that science isn't going to keep you warm at night, It's not going to keep you feeling all connected and happy. All those atheists sitting in their basements aren't super duper stoked about science when they're alone, I think you're right. It's a community, and there's no better community than when you can find a church that can affirm you and support you in your pursuit of being, becoming more like Christ. So, yeah.
I think it's also worth pointing out that it's constantly changing as well. It's like from the people that brought you like the vaccines that that were stopping people's hearts, and that were that were shutting down churches and small businesses and keeping the strip clubs open, and the Costco's, and everyone had to go cram their butt into the Costco at the same place. It's like, those people, you're going to trust them? Like, ooh, I don't know.
Those science,
I don't have a whole lot of faith in them either.
Yeah. Well,
like, I don't know.
I'm big on science, but my frustration is like, I don't know if the church really claims to be like a scientifically sound organization. Like, if you go to church, we never talk about a 6,000-year-old earth ever. Like, if you believe it or don't believe it, we don't care. Another thing we don't talk about in church, Adam Diamond. We don't. It's not like we're like, oh, the Garden of Eden was in Missouri, and we're gonna have a whole testimony meeting about that. We don't. What do you mean? Like, you can have whatever idea you really want about that. We focus on Jesus. Like, going back to a spouse that's struggling with a spouse leaving. I would pose the question of like, hey, I love Jesus. How can we include Jesus in your doubts? Because if you throw this away, does it affect Jesus? And I think a lot of men are going to realize that things that their wives are frustrated about actually don't affect Jesus if you throw away that thing. Like, let's say your wife is like, hey, I feel like I want to be the leader of the house and I want to call on who gives the prayer. Is that going to affect Jesus? I don't think so. Like, would you give that up? Like, just let her call on, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I do think there's another side of it. It's like, where does Jesus take place in this conversation? Because I don't think Jesus really cares about if I know how old the earth is. I just don't. I think he cares about the atonement.
Yeah. Well, and then to your point, like, there are so many people who follow these, fall into the algorithmic trap, and then not only throw their testimony of the church out, right? But they throw baby Jesus out with the bathwater, and then they just become complete atheists, throw Christianity out completely, which is just a crying shame,
I met this dude once that was a avid rock climber, and his hair was the greasiest hair I've ever. I was like, bro, why is your hair so greasy? Like, I had to ask him. It was that greasy. I thought he had gotten out of a shower. I was like, what happened? And he was like, well, in the past, like, our hair develops its own stuff that helps, like, it cleans itself. You just have to let it grease out. And I was like, oh, okay. And then those people that I've also met, they start like losing hair, and then they blame it on shampoo. Like it was shampoo's fault that they stopped taking care of their hair. And if in the very beginning they would have just washed their hair, they would be okay. And they're like, well, people in the past never went bald. You're like, people in the past didn't live past 45. So like
never had a chance to go bald.
Shampoo was not the problem. Like, this was not head and shoulders isn't killing you. And I think people do that with the gospel, where they leave the gospel and they get greasy hair, and everyone goes, what are you doing? This is so interesting. And they go, oh, it just makes me look good. It's the natural way. It's how things are supposed to naturally be. And then they start balding, and people go, what the frick happened to the natural way? And they go, oh, well, shampoo ruined it because I didn't use it and I've been adapted to it. Shampoo is the reason. You're like, wait, hold up.
So their life starts falling apart, and the head and shoulders in this analogy is the church. They're like, oh, it was the church. Okay, the church is the reason why I'm a childless cat lady right now. It's like,
that was a great analogy. I'll just say, like, I'm going to use that shampoo analogy in the future. That's hilarious.
That's a solid one.
And the crazy thing is, some people, it doesn't affect their hair at all. But also, in reality, some people just never go bald. Like, it's genetics. It's not the shampoo. It's not the... So, like, people will leave the church. Growing up, people always used to say, oh, I left the church and I'm so happy. The only thing I see from ex-members now that have left the church, they talk about the medication they're on, the amount of therapy they have to do, and why it's the church's fault. It's like, oh, that's weird. Are we... Wait, hold up. So you left the church to be happy. Now you're not happy. So it's the church's fault? What are we talking about? What do you mean? Maybe
I've actually got a theory about this. I've got a theory. All right. Have you guys strap in for this one? So have you seen the House of David?
Yes.
House of David. Okay.
I love the House of David. It's totally not biblical, but it's dope.
Right. One of the things that I really enjoyed is their interpretation of Saul when he was cursed by Samuel. And I think there are a lot of parallels there with like ex-members and anti-members. So like Samuel curses Saul, and in the biblical sense, to be cursed just means that you don't have God's presence with you anymore, right? To be blessed is to have God's presence with you. So the Nephites were blessed. They were able to ward off the Lamanites. The Lamanites, they were left to their own strength. And when the Nephites were cursed, meaning they no longer had God with them, they were wiped out. And so Saul was cursed by Samuel. God was no longer with him. He lost that inner peace. He lost that inner strength, and he began to kind of lose his mind. And then it turned into him just like going crazy. And he was constantly looking over his shoulder. He was not peaceful. He was not comfortable. He was not courageous anymore. He lost all of that. And he blamed it 100% on Samuel instead of on himself for not listening to Samuel in the first place, right? And so I love that, and Tanner and I will probably do a deeper dive into that. Maybe we'll pull up House of David. It's a great show. It's a great show.
No, it's really good.
And walk through how King Saul is like your average anti.
Well, you don't even have to.
Yeah, we should have a watch party. That's what we should do.
We'll do a watch party.
That would be a great one to watch. That'd be great. But I was reading. So my wife and I, we've only been married for a year. So I was reading the beginning of first of the Book of Mormon again. Bro, Laman and Lemuel are the most. It's exactly what happens to anti or ex or post members of the church. Like they're just like, oh, this is so stupid. I'd be happier over there. And then they get like happy following the law. And then every time they break the law, they get sad. And then they blame it on the law. And then they then they break the law again and get sad and blame it on the law. It's like, if the church was not true at all, like actually not true, if you left, you'd actually be happier. But it's just not the case. That's not what happens. Right. It's just not what happens. I do think there's some people that are happy for a season. And that season does last a while. But they usually are like, so I started going to therapy now because I needed to deconstruct my religion. You're like, what? And then they end up getting deconstructing their lives. Like,
right. We did a video on this one girl who left, and she was so happy. And then she did this little reel about how, come clean my closet with me, because this is what I do when I have an existential crisis about what happens after I die, because I don't have any answers anymore, and it makes me really sad. So let's distract ourselves by cleaning the closet.
Existential anxiety, and she's just like, the only way I can cope with this is cleaning my closet, so come clean my closet with me. And the whole time
you had the answers. You gave
there was
it
a
up.
time lapse of her organizing her closet, and in the background she had that nice voice, and she was like, so sometimes I have an existential anxiety attack because I used to have all the answers and now I don't. So I just try and distract myself by folding clothes. And it's like, wow, that's our alternative. It's just,
at the end of the day, does it really matter at the age of the earth? Or does it matter about the existential crisis you have when you're freaking cleaning your closet? You know what I mean?
Right.
Exactly.
So you're sitting down with yourself, and then your thoughts start coming at you, and you're just like, time to clean the closet. I'm so much happier. Take that.
Dude, the actual people also sometimes when members say what I'm about to say, people are like, see, they're just doing it because it feels good. But the safety net of the gospel, when you actually understand it and you truly know that it's true, is a safety net. Like, you can bank on it. I saw someone make a whole entire video about how Mormons are terrible, cruel people because they're smiling at funerals. It's like, no, we have an eternal perspective. Like, we believe we'll see these people again, but they're like, oh, this is terrible. They're smiling at funerals. Like, how are they happy they don't even realize that they should be mourning. It's like, wait, whoa, what's the argument you're making right now? Like, I don't understand. But that's
I mean, you want to talk science, the survival of the fittest. Mormons are just more like emotionally stronger emotional fortitude when it comes to situations like that. They're the ones that are going to win out at the end. Like, I think that's going back to what Ket was saying about community. That's what's really going to keep you moving forward, is the safety net that the knowledge of the gospel brings you, so you can actually survive and thrive in pain and suffering. Because that's all this world is pain and suffering.
Well, I mean, it reminds me of that video President Nelson did, when the jet engine blew, and he's just flying in this plane, and it started spiraling down, and this lady next to him just started losing her schniz, and she was just like, and she started freaking out. And he was just like, the whole time, he was just like, what's her problem? He was ready to dance with death that day. He was just so ready. He was like, bring it on.
His soul was prepared.
Yeah, dude. Another thing,
it's just
I guess
that's the kind of person you want around you.
For real, I know we've been filming for a while, so I don't want to go on too many tangents. But when people say the members of the church are brainwashed, for some reason they don't apply that standard to military. Like the dudes on D-Day, were those guys brainwashed or were they brave? And I don't understand.
Right.
But when we do brave things, like someone dies and we go, you know what? I'm going to see them again, but I need to live this life. Or a bad things happen, you get laid off and you go, I got laid off, but I'm going to look to the Lord and this will work out. For some reason, or something terrible happens and you go to your bishop for help, or you pay your tithing. People call that brainwash, but the same exact idea, like for people on D-Day or the Revolutionary War and these colonizers and colonizers, I guess, like Christopher Columbus or Native Americans,
the colonists,
the colonists. That's what I meant to say. But people that stepped into this brave new world, people that stepped into this new world where they could have died, but they were doing it for family and freedom. People didn't call them brainwashed. They called them brave. And I think members of the church need to lean in a little bit to that brainwash thing where they're like, no. I'm not brainwashed. I am brave. I'm taking a step somewhere you're scared to go. You're scared to give up coffee. I don't know why, but you're scared of it. You're scared of paying tithing. You're terrified of eternal whatever. Not me. I believe in Jesus Christ, and he's at the helm. All I got to do is make sure the flag is flying, baby. Just got to make sure the flag is flying.
I think that's a good note to probably wrap it up on. So
absolutely, yeah,
I really enjoy speaking with you guys. I love the call out there. So if you are maybe struggling yourself, or if you have a spouse that's struggling, the call out here is to study with them. I thought you were going to go into companionship inventory, but you said companionship study, and I was all in on that. I'm like, man, that is, because I think the knee-jerk response is companionship inventory. It's like, all right, let me show you how you're wrong, bye-bye. But take them by the hand and say, let's get through this together. You know, let's study this out. Let's figure it out together. You can do that faithfully. You can be brave about it, because we do have a lot of great truth. We do have a lot of great resources out there. You can take the leap and lean on the Savior to help them get through that algorithm. So I really love that call out. And so until next time, I'm Hayden Holm. This is Tanner. We got Roy Anderson and his brother Ket at the Iron Rodcast. So please go check them out. We'll put a link in the description. This is Salty Saints.